Welcome to the Comic Book Look. Alright guys, welcome to a comic book look.
Yes.
We got issue 45.
Whoa,
Oh man,
whoa.
jumping back to the 30s.
Wow.
I meant to say 45.
One beer in and look at him, ladies and gentlemen. He's
Oh.
lost his numbers.
Give me a break. We are your weekly TV show on comic books. We talk about everything in the comic book industry, anything possible. And today we got a really special guest today, and we're going to have a fun time. You've been seeing a bunch of guests from us lately, and it's fun to get with the people who are, you know, making the comics, people who are trying to get into the industry, and it's fun to check out, you know, new up-and-coming creators. So, I hope you enjoy the show. We got Jim Murray on the show tonight.
Specialist, a special guest. Introduce yourself. What's going on?
Hi, I'm Jim Murray. I've read comics all my life, and I've always liked reading in general and everything, and I always wanted to make comics and stuff. So this year I finally made my first comic. This is classic horror comics, Bride of PROMETHEON. And there it is there. I wrote the story. The thing is, I can't really draw, so that was always kind of an obstacle for me because I always wanted to do this stuff. But I went on digital webbing and put up an ad, and I literally had like 100 emails, you know. So I had to sort through all this, and so I found an artist to work with, and I got this book out, and I just started this year. Started my Hardcore Studios. That's just my label for all the stuff I'm doing.
Nice.
I do some other stuff too besides comics, but I've been doing conventions this past spring. I did Pittsburgh and Chicago and Mocha Fest up in New York.
Oh, cool.
And at the end of June, I'm going to be at Heroes World down in Charlotte. So I'll be selling my books there.
Nice.
Well, awesome, man. Mocha, that's a really sweet con. I always want to check that out sometime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really more like it's a very like artsy indie.
It's all indie. Yeah, I mean, you know,
it's really like a lot of offbeat kind of quirky kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's good for networking and stuff. I met some people that I might hopefully do some other projects with and things like that.
Cool. Sweet, man. All right. Well, besides just having him on as an interview, we're also going to, just treat him like a guest. So we got a special show for you. We're going to talk about what kind of got us into reading comics again. A lot of people, read comics when they're, children growing up. They get comic books, and then usually sometime you fall off of it in college or high school. You don't really read as much. Some people do read all the way through. I wish I was that person, but unfortunately I didn't read forever. But we're going to kind of just talk about what got, me, John, and Jim all back into comics. I don't know. Johnny, want to start us off here?
Totally, dude. It's kind of, for me it was honestly, I originally got into it with the X-Men 90s cartoon, but lately it's, and you're not going to like this, but what got me back into it was Dark Reign with my Dark Avengers, because I'm a very cold-hearted person, as Jim knows. I'm all about my brew and my good times, right, Jim? Last time we met at the bar, I was really trash. So. Jim, I have this comic book show. You should totally be on it. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I like Dark Reign. I like Dark Reign a lot.
Right.
I was overseas when that was going on, but I was in that Marvel digital comics thing that they have on their website. I was doing that, and
nice.
I was sticking out a lot of the Dark Reign stuff. I really like that a lot. I like Dark Reign a lot. I wish it lasted longer, actually.
Well, finally,
oh,
I'm not
man,
the minority.
No way.
Wow.
Lasted longer.
Jim, you're my best friend ever, man.
I know John loved Dark Avengers. I mean, I specifically remember, working with you, John, and then, you picking, being like, I'm gonna go start reading comics too, and just.
And by comics, I mean everything that says Dark Reign at the top center.
And
I went way overboard with tie-ins, and oh my god.
You just jumped head first.
Yeah.
And everything that said Dark Reign, you bought.
Yeah.
And as much as I didn't enjoy the stories as much as Dark Reign as you did,
I
appreciate it so much because it got you into reading comics.
Exactly, and that's one thing I'm totally excited about is just getting back into comics. It's been a blast. It really has. Like, I know it's not Dark Reign now, but I mean, I do read some good books, good guy books, some bad guy books, some indie books, whatever. But it's been an awesome past couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's kind of a unique thing because a lot of about comics is, you know, we always want to get more readers in the industry. We always want as many people, you know, to read comics as we possibly can. And I wish everybody was reading comics. You know, I want the best-selling comics to sell in the millions. You know, why not have they're awesome. So why isn't everybody reading them?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, sharing your story on, you know, what got you into comics. You know, maybe that's something.
I might be the only one that this event drew in, to be honest. But
I'm sorry, the only one that what?
That this event like drew back to comics.
Oh, come on! I think it had a lot of people reading it, and
yeah, no, it was fun.
Marvel's able to do that.
It was fun.
So yeah, I think it's cool that it did that for you, even though I thought Dark Reign was pretty long and drawn out, and come on, get it over with, Norman Osborn.
This is how the shows go.
But yeah. So Jim, what kind of got you, or how? Let's hear, since people know kind of a lot about us who watch our show and our reading habits. Let's kind of hear your reading you know, how you got to read comics, or if you jumped back into comics, or if you've always read comics.
Yeah, I'm a lifer. Yeah, I'm a lifer. When I was really little, I was always like into words and reading and stuff, and even like when I was really young, like I remember like just kind of like looking at the newspaper and just picking out words that I knew what they were and stuff like that. So and it started when my mom took me to the store to buy lottery tickets, and I hobbled over to the newsstand, which, you know, back in the day they actually sold comic books at regular stores and such, and I picked out a Spider-Man book. It was The Amazing Spider-Man, and then that's what started everything. It's all downhill from there. You know?
Yeah, so, exactly.
So yeah, I read Spider-Man and Superman. I read Spider-Man all through my childhood, I think, Amazing Spider-Man. And then, you know, as I became a teenager, we had like the comic book store in my town, and I started getting more into like independent stuff. And I was like a teenager when like Image hit and Spawn and all that stuff, so I was really into Spawn. And I like Dark Horse Comics a lot. I don't read as much of them nowadays, but I mean I really like that company. I'd say I like the stuff Dark Horse did and does. And so yeah, as you know, I get older, start more independent stuff and everything. But I always like Marvel. And as I get older, I got really into the Punisher. Like as an adult, I think I got really into the Punisher and stuff like that. And,
yep.
It's a little sporadic right now for different reasons, but I love the Max Punisher series when Garth Ennis was writing that.
Yeah, he just...
everything. So yeah, I've read it. I'm a lifer. I think when I was in high school, I had a really brief period where I stopped. I was getting into music, and I was wanting to spend my money on albums and stuff. So I was starting to. So I stopped very briefly, but that didn't even last that long. So yeah, like I said, I'm a lifer.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I mean, I remember my mom just would like not buy comics for me. You know, so like I remember getting comics through other people, and I remember like stopping at a truck stop. We stopped at like Wall Drug, and Wall Drug is, if for people who most people would never know, is this most ridiculous store out in the middle of nowhere.
It is.
You know, but they have
that horrible water. That horrible free water.
Yeah.
It's like, no wonder it's free. No wonder in their right mind would pay for it.
5-cent coffee for truckers.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, but they have a million signs, and it's this big deal
amazing.
that when you're a little kid, you see all these signs and you're driving, you're like, oh, I have to go to Wall Drug, Mom. You know, so whatever. We went to this place called Wall Drug. It's ridiculous. And they had a bunch of the comics from, I was probably about 7, 8 years old, so we're probably talking 1993. And they had a whole bunch of the comics from like 1990 and 1991 all packed together. A bunch of X-Men titles that, you know, they printed a gajillion, you know, copies of.
Yeah,
and
they aren't worth anything now.
Yeah, exactly. And so they sold like a whole bunch of them together. And I remember me and my brother, who was probably about 5 at the time, just begging our parents to. The only thing we wanted at Wall Drug were this stack of comic books, and we got them. And then I just remember the rest of the trip, both of us just reading constantly the whole entire time and just loving it so much and trying to talk our parents into getting us more. And they didn't. And I didn't know our city had a comic shop, even though I've had like 3. And I did, even then, growing up, I only had certain amounts where I could get these comic books. Some of our school library had comics, and so then I got to check those out. And a couple of them, my friends would maybe have 1 or 2. But then my grandma died, which was terrible, but we got to go through all her stuff, and we found my uncle's comics, and this is probably when I was now about 10 or 11, and we found just hundreds and hundreds of comic books, mostly just Archie, but tons of, just Silver Age comics, and then I just busted into those, and that's where I probably started. I got into Fantastic Four, I got into Batman, Superman, and Archie, and I read hundreds and hundreds of comics, and then after that I just kind of fell off again throughout high school, and then it really came back is when I was a crazy party animal, doing way too many things that I shouldn't be doing, and after high school and going into college, and it was terrible, but I eventually, me and my wife got pregnant, and so I was like, hey, I better behave. Yeah, we both did. I like to consider me getting pregnant as well. I did most of the damn work. No, hopefully she never hears that. But anyway, and I got to, then I found out that, I'm not going out and spending my money on drinks every single night, so now all of a sudden, maybe I'm spending my money on other things, and I was like, hey, I've always loved these comics, and then a guy I was working with, and I was about 20 years old, and he handed me Watchmen, and I was like, read it all the way through, loved it, beyond belief. I'd read tons of novels at this point. I was going through, regular novels like crazy, just hadn't been reading comics. And so then I always thought, even in my mind, even though I liked comics a lot, that still comics were going to be, not as good as what I could read in these regular books. And then after I read Watchmen, I was like, well, that's definitely not true at all. This is better than most books I've ever read. Way better. And so then after that, I started going to the comic book shop, and I picked up X-Men and maybe 1 or 2 titles, and then slowly I've just been picking up since then for, years now. And yeah, so whatever, 7 years of going to the comic book shop every Wednesday.
One thing that you mentioned that I'm kind of curious where Jim falls on is that Watchmen scale is what I'm going to call it in terms of the 4 Watchmen books that are coming out now. You kind of dipping your feet, into that creator pool and stuff like that. How do you feel about all this?
How do I feel about the Watchmen prequels?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Who read Watchmen and didn't want to see more Rorschach?
Nobody.
Nobody read Watchmen and thought, I don't want to see that Rorschach guy anymore. No, everyone, we all were like, I want to see more Rorschach.
Right. He's just the greatest character, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And, they did, Alan Moore wrote those supplements for those role-playing games back then. They had the DC Universe role-playing game, and then they did a Watchmen supplement for that. And Alan Moore wrote some stuff for that was additional material or whatever, additional information. And I think Alan Moore himself was talking about doing a Minutemen series and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so, whatever.
Yeah, I think it definitely probably would have been open. I know that they're actually Rorschach is in a question, a DC book. The Question has a dream, and Rorschach is in his dream.
Oh,
and
really?
And it even says in the titles, thanks to Alan Moore for special thanks to Alan Moore, and that would be the reason because you got to get that. And
when did that book come out?
Right after Watchmen, or during Watchmen. So this one, when Alan Moore loves DC, it's his company, and he's thinking he's gonna get the rights to these. But as crazy it is now, it's also with how good Watchmen is. I don't know. Do we need to have a bunch more other books? So you know, it's give or take. I know it just came out today. Actually, did you know that the first issue came out today?
Yeah.
At the comic shop.
It was the Minutemen series, right?
Yeah, and so I didn't get it, but you know, it's like as much as I definitely contemplated getting it because it's Darwin Cook is a great artist, and he's the one who's
it got a good review on CBR.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would figure it would because Darwin Cook isn't going to let it down, and I'm sure it's going to be okay. But you know, I guess I just skipped my $4 on that today. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's a bold direction. We did a show on it a few weeks ago, and certainly a hot topic. But I mean, my stance on it is as long as it's done correctly, then I guess I would be okay with it. And I say that very cautiously because I know there's a lot of pro-more people out there that probably want to shank me.
Yeah, like me.
Well, whatever.
But you
Welcome
know,
to fandom, right?
and I'm just saying it strictly as a consumer. I'm, no disrespect to Mr. Moore because I mean, the works that he did are awesome. You know, the movie was fun. Yeah. You know, I know it didn't. Obviously, the book is definitely a lot better. So
yeah,
but
and I just think, I mean, really, I can't morally get that book. I love Alan Moore too much, and reading all these, I've done way too much research into Alan Moore. You know, and how he feels about it to support it. So I guess that's why I just can't because he is my favorite comic book creator.
You're not gonna check any of them out?
What? No.
None of them.
No.
Prequels.
Even Rorschach.
Nope, not gonna do it. I even love the artist and the writer on Rorschach so much, dude. They did, you know, it's the guy who did those Joker and Lex Luthor books, and those are just some of the coolest books ever. So I mean, you know, they're gonna have a great handle on it. But
I might pick up one or two just because I like to kind of get familiar with what's going on. But you know, we can always check out other people's reviews too to get
exactly. And I was kind of hoping John would maybe pick one up because he doesn't have the same moral compass that I have.
I have no moral compass, Jim. You know that.
Shut up. You know, as a
Jim knows that. Jim, what am I drinking right now for the camera?
Evil. Wow.
You are evil.
I've never seen that before.
It's awesome. It's a local thing out here, I believe. Lucky Bucket is who does it.
I don't know.
Like,
it's wonderful.
Like Sioux Falls local or South Dakota local?
I think it's Omaha, I believe.
Also
Who
Nebraska?
I don't know. Nebraska? I don't know.
That's pretty sweet, though.
I'll get back to you on that, but it's amazing. Oh, wait, no, it's Nebraska. La Vista, Nebraska.
And you are evil, John. So.
I know, and Jim knows
We'll have to swap some of that with some Yingling out of Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Exactly. I love Yingling. Every time I'm East Coast, I get Yingling.
Yeah.
But, all right. Well, enough talking about the nonsense.
Let's get familiar with our guests.
We got this guy that we're just tossing over.
This is Jim's show tonight.
It is. And so now tell us, you know, you talked a little bit about Hardcore Studios, what you're doing. Kind of talk about, you know, how the cons go, you know, and
what were your experiences?
And you know, and how it's been going promoting your books at all these different cons and stuff.
You know, it's really tough, but it's fun. You know, but you got to realize it's a lot of work. I really tried to stay at my table as much as possible. As far as promoting goes, like just to try and be on my feet as much as possible.
Yeah.
To stand up and really try my best to talk to every single person.
And that's what gets people in. That's what, like Skyler, our cameraman, got some books just by talking to people because you know they're outgoing. You know, and stuff. You can't just sit behind it with a name tag and expect people to walk up to you.
Yeah.
So good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, and I did really well in Pittsburgh, actually, and I think we all kind of got lucky because they actually had Stan Lee there, and they had him there for 2 days.
Really
awesome.
And the room that he was signing in was the same room that Artist Alley was in, so I think we all kind of lucked out. That was. So we all, I think a lot of us did. I know I did really well at that show.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people did too. So that was
good for you. Good.
Yeah. Good. And I put the book up digitally. I have it on. It's you can see it on my website, but it's there's a way you can buy it digitally. Sure. And I got it in a few stores and stuff in my area and stuff like that.
Good.
But it's just it's like. The advice that I was given and that I would repeat, I guess, is that any kind of indie art, like you know, John and I we're friends with Gabe. You know, it's kind of like it's a lot of work. You got to treat it like a job. You know, whether it's music or books or art or if you paint or you just anything like that. You got to kind of treat
a comic book show in the basement.
Yeah,
right. We have it pretty.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Or if we do a comic show in the basement, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but no, I hear you.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, yeah. But it's it's something I always want to do and everything. So,
Sure.
part of some of the advice I was given was, because I mean, obviously I like superheroes, of course, but a lot of people told me that if you want to do indie books, like if someone's going to buy an indie book, they're really looking for something like different,
Yep.
And then the other thing is just kind of with actually making it, obviously black and white is a look, significantly cheaper than color. Although I hear even that's changing a little bit. But anyway, so I thought, what if I could make a book? What would I do? Right. And so I thought, well, what's different? What's something that's different? And I always like monster movies and horror movies and stuff like that. So I thought, well, maybe I'd try like a horror comic. And I thought, well, a horror comic, black and white, and then that gave me this idea for this, which is kind of like mimicking the experience of seeing an old monster movie during like the golden age of Hollywood.
Totally.
Which is how this came about. So that's why, like in my book, on the inside cover is like it's like you're seeing a movie. It's like now showing Bride of Prometheon. Although on the camera it probably says it backwards. And those times there would be like fake. And those times there'd be like the news and stuff before you see a movie because people didn't have TV, right? So that's why I had this in here. I have a couple pages of like kind of like pretend news, and then like a preview of a movie. There's like a preview of a mummy movie, which I would be like my next story, and then there's like the main story, like the title sequence, Bride of Prometheon, and then it ends with the curtains, the curtain closing.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was trying to go for, just something that's different that maybe sticks out a little bit, So that was the idea I had of mimicking seeing a movie at that time period and being like an old monster movie.
Well, one thing one thing that you said though with the black and white, I don't think it makes it look cheap at all because when it's done right.
Well, no, not that it makes it look cheap, but it's as far as physically making the book, it's costs a lot more to print in color. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah, totally.
Because when it's done right, I think that sometimes it can express better sometimes in color because it really makes the reader focus more on what's going on and how it's expressed and so forth. We had an indie book that we picked up from Spring Con up in the cities where the only color was like a blue painting on the wall and then like some red blood, I think, and that was it. So...
And it really stood out.
I really like... I didn't have a problem with the black and white at all. Personally.
No, yeah, no, I think that
and I'm just telling you as a reader, Jim. Like,
I thought it was. I definitely thought it was cool. I mean, when's the last time I read a monster movie book?
Right, exactly.
I haven't, so that's why it's awesome.
Yeah.
And
there's no guys in underwear with capes. Right? So that's
so definitely it sticks out. It's black and white. It feels like it's a monster movie from, like you said, definitely a throwback of old monster movies in it. And I really liked it. I think it's cool. I think it's just cool that you're out there. You created this. You got it done. You made it, and then you're out there promoting it, getting it sold, getting it out to the people. And when you're really at those cons and you're giving it each issue by issue, I mean, you really are knowing who your fan base is. You're going to see who's reading your books, and I just think it's really cool and something that everybody that's watching the show needs to support.
When you're I don't want to use the term hustling, but when I think of games, that's what I think.
It is.
But no, when you're adding that personal touch, when you're getting out there talking to people, that's what makes the day for us because all of us bought indie books at Spring Con because we connected with these people one way or another. One question I had for you, because I kind of was wondering about possibly a little historical swagger in there, was all these Hoover references.
So was all the what?
All the Hoover references, like fixing one shoe with cardboard.
Oh yeah,
and the car with
I did a little bit of research. Yeah. Of, Great Depression America, and I wanted to put that in there. As I don't know. I went to school to be a teacher, to teach history.
Okay.
So I, really like history and everything. So, so it's just kind of a natural fit for me anyway. And it was, it was just something I wanted to add some authenticity and something to make it stick out. So it's not so generic or anything. Just I think little bits of dialogue like that I think make the difference.
Yeah. because I thought that, just throwing those expressions in there, I thought was cool, and adding the notes in there was helpful for me because, I need to see it. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
I would have Googled the shit out of that otherwise, believe that. But, no, I definitely got a charge out of that. I thought it was fun.
Cool.
All in all, for me, and this is my review, I liked it a lot. I thought that, just kind of the genre, because compared to what I read, I do read a lot of cape stuff, but I actually have been delving, into my little fables here and there, and just checking out whatever the hell I can get my hands on. And that's been the best experience for me, because X-Men is always going to be X-Men, and Batman's always going to be Batman, and that's fine. Sometimes there is something wrong with that, and sometimes there's not. But the one thing that I like is something new, and something where I can meet the person that did it. And to me as a reader, that's more meaningful, because for me, I like shaking their hand, having a beer with them, or in our case, Jim, getting completely obliterated at the Red Eye. so, and when you're in town again, I expect a sequel. So,
all right.
So, what can we see from you on the horizon here? Do you have anything else in the works? Are you planning anything out? Are you going to continue to write or do other things besides comics, or where else?
I got a few different things. On my website, I got a few webcomics. I have a few finite things. One of them is finished. It's on my website, Hard Coal Studios. That's COAL. I found an artist in New York to. She did this strip with me called Shock Value, and it's another monster thing. It's like a humorous kind of monster strip.
Right on.
The old monsters are worried that they're not relevant anymore, so they decide to make a found footage film. And it's just a short little thing about their little shenanigans and stuff like that. It's humorous.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine drew another strip for me that's like, it's kind of like an, how do I describe it? It's an aerial, like, aviation adventure. That's what it is. And it's called The Phantom Flyer. And that's being put up right now. Not all of the strips are up yet, but that's up right now. And if I could, I have something else to plug. I did a prose novella. This is also on my website.
Okay.
It's called Frankenstein, the Illuminatus Complex.
Nice.
And you're talking about Alan Moore. I'm a big fan of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
And all those characters are in the same world together.
Oh yeah.
This is like a small version of that. It's Frankenstein and the Frankenstein creature and Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Nice.
Yeah, they're in the story together, and it gets into some secret history behind who was really behind the Frankenstein experiment, as well as who was really behind the building of the Nautilus, Captain Nemo ship. So it's a short, it's kind of halfway between like a short story and a novella. It's like 76 pages. There's a preview for it on my website, and you can order it on my website too.
Nice.
Awesome.
And any people in the poetry out there, I also got a poetry book. It's also on my website. It's called Almost Normal. Okay. I did poetry readings for a year, so I put a collection together. So I was working on those, and the Frankenstein story. I've written another story. It's a shorter story than this. That's about Captain Nemo, and it's like a small story. So I think I'm just gonna put it on my website, and I'll be putting that up probably over the summer, so you can keep an eye out for that.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, man.
One question that I think that is so important, and I know that I'm totally excited to hear about this, but I know that you were overseas for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
What is you mentioned, you got some books over there from the U.S., but what is the international scene? Like in your experience, did you get some local books over there? What's happening overseas?
Yeah, I taught English in Korea for 5 years, so that's where I was living.
Yeah.
It's in the students, the kids, everyone reads comics, and even girls.
Whoa!
Well, first of all, I want to say
every kid reads comics.
And South Korea has literally the best movies as well. I love South Korean movies.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh God,
it's crazy.
And they're just so originative. So I mean, when John told me that you lived in Korea, I was pretty jealous. I mean, I have really gotten into the kind of that culture recently, and all their different, you know, how it is. Everybody reads comics, you know, everybody.
Yeah. At least the kids, anyway. The adults, I don't know if as many adults read comics, but for kids, like every kid reads. But they're Asian comics, like the Korean comics and Japanese comics. They don't really have access to American comics yet. In like the Foreigner neighborhood, there was a bookstore they had. You could get graphic novels, so I was able to keep up with like League of Gentlemen with them. I visited Japan. I've seen the businessman on the subway reading a comic book. That is true. That does really happen.
That's what I hear. That's awesome.
I've been to Australia, and they have Western comics there. They have like comic book stores. They have like a Diamond account. And you know who's really popular in Australia? This is very curious to me. The Phantom.
What? Really?
Lee Falk's the Phantom. He's very popular in Australia. Like
they
regular
still have
everyday people.
That's awesome.
Dynamite.
Everyday people know who the Phantom is, and they sell. There's somebody that sells like reprints, like black and white reprints of old Phantom comics, and you see them at the convenience store and stuff like that. Like they're just everyone knows who the Phantom is.
Dynamite still publishes a Phantom book, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, there's still. I mean, he still gets around sometimes, and my only exposure to the Phantom. I mean, I know he's an old pulp guy, but I mean, my only real exposure to the Phantom is the horrible movie. So.
Yeah. I really like the Phantom. Actually, the guy that's like the #1 guy in Phantom fandom lives really close to where I'm at.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's cool. I do think that's so cool that Japanese comics do just sell a butt ton. You know, and they do. They just sell way more than they can, but they're treated way differently. Like that businessman who read that comic probably kind of threw that comic away after he was done reading it. You know, he probably isn't. He didn't go home and bag and board that newspaper print. Comic that he was reading. It is totally serialized like a TV show, and that's kind of when we get the compressed manga volumes. I mean, I love Japanese comics, and I buy them all the time. But I just feel that it is an expensive cost. So.
In the Philippines, there's a lot of people that are into American comics, and there's a lot of artists over there and stuff. And
I was gonna say artists. There's tons of artists that are even drawing Marvel and DC that live in the Philippines. So I mean,
I was
I've heard of that before.
I was in Manila, which is a really shady place, by the way. But I went to one of the malls, and they had I was living overseas for a couple of years. I hadn't seen a real comic book store. I go into this mall, and they had a regular comic book store, like North American Comics. I was so happy, honest to God, I almost cried.
That is awesome.
And, I saw I think it was Mark Miller. He did a big signing over there. He had a thing about one of the books that he does. He had a contest. He said he would come to the store that ordered the most of was some specific book of his, and I think it might have been that store because it was in Manila. He had a thing on his blog about it. He went over there, and it was like this huge deal. Like all these people turned out for it. It was like really amazing.
Yeah, no, I heard about that as well. Yeah, totally. And that's funny that you've probably been to that store that it happened at, because I remember they were like, he was hoping that it would be some, like New York or Los Angeles, someplace that he's probably going to go to sometime anyway and has a bunch of stuff to do. And then it ended up being like this store in the Philippines just like outbought everybody, and was like, well, it looks like that's where he's
going.
They
had like billboards on the streets about it and stuff. It was like really crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but the kids, like Korean kids, because of the movies, they know kids all over the world, I guess, know like Spider-Man and
totally.
Like they all know those characters, and the movies actually open there before they do in America. I was joking with my friends about
Australia got Avengers for a month before us.
Oh
you believe that?
Yeah, like Korea a couple weeks before. I was joking with my friends about we're gonna fly back to. I was joking with Gabe about we're gonna fly back to Korea and go see.
I got some tickets. You wanna go with me? Lol.
That's awesome.
Shit, Jim, I'll go with you.
Heck yeah, man. Well, Jim, thank you so much for being on our show. This has been an excellent time.
Let me plug one more thing I forgot.
Plug away.
One more. There's it's Greyhaven Press. They're publishing these anthologies, and they're going to have an anthology out. I think it's next January. It's going to be called True Ghost Stories.
Okay.
And I'm going to have a 4-page story in there.
Nice.
Well, how about
Yeah.
you? And before that comes out, we'll hook up with you and get you on the show again to remind people that it's coming out. So
You're always welcome on the show, dude. So,
All right, thanks.
it's that Midwest swagger. Connection.
Yeah.
That's what you get for throwing down with me and putting up with me.
Yeah.
it's tough putting up with John.
I know. Well, again, we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. Before we wrap up, though, I'm always big on not us giving the links or anything. Where can we find you at? Where can the viewers find you at here online?
Hey, hardcoalstudios.com. That's COAL, Coal, Hard Coal Studios.
Okay.
And I'll totally throw up the links like I always do, guys, in the comments. So check that, and then obviously you'll be seeing it on the screen at this point as well.
Definitely.
So yeah, but thanks again. I mean, it's been a great show. Once again, we got another sweet indie creator on the show, and we even got him to talk about his life in comics. So that is awesome, guys. Thank you again, Mr. Murray. You have been a pleasure. And once again, you can check us out on our Facebook page, A Comic Book Look. Please join. Anybody who asks to join, we of course want you on there, and we want people.
We're on call like
talking.
the nurses that we are. We get you in within 24 hours.
More like we're just like constantly like we want more people. Oh, what was that? And so please join the Facebook. And when you got a question or a concern or a comment that you want to lay down, put it in the Inveterate Media Junkies section.
Yeah.
InveterateMediaJunkies.com. Sickest website around. They host our videos.
They put up with us.
Yeah, they put up with our shenanigans of being late for getting logos, everything else we do. But
Yeah.
that's how it rolls sometimes, guys, doing a weekly TV show. It's tough, man.
It's hard.
especially because
The pressure. Tom and I are just like, oh my god, we gotta lay the personalities down.
And processing on laptops, man. I wish we had a giant, like the greatest computer ever to process these videos really quickly. It'd be a little bit easier for Skyler, but he puts in the hard work. So we love Skyler, our cameraman. Always shout out to him. But
Skyler, have you
please,
seen him?
a comicbooklook@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Send us any questions. We want to do an email show soon, so if you want to hear about, you have any questions that you want to hear from us,
Definitely.
comic book vets in the industry.
What?
That we can ask. Look at this. We're getting creators on all the time. We'll get to ask them questions.
Yeah.
So let us know at a comicbooklook at gmail.com. And then, obviously every Tuesday night, InveterateMediaJunkies.com. Do not miss us. Come right away, watch. I mean, it's like you're preparing for Comic Book Wednesday. Comic Book Look comes out on Tuesday.
It's like
you watch
the Sabbath. You come to church, you listen to the sermon.
and then, you go. You're prepared, comic book ready on Wednesday.
Exactly. You're all amped up.
Anyway,
I
guys.
had the tiger.
I have a tiger. Thanks again, Mr. Jim Murray.
Definitely.
Tom,
Thank you.
John,
It was a pleasure.
Skyler, Comic Book Look.
Excellent. And as always, what are we going to do, audience? Because I like the way Skyler did this last time. We're going to #, keep it comics. Pow.